Hello, and welcome to Connect to Love here on PRN-FM, where we explore the magic that resides in each one of us. I am Lisa LaRose, and I'm joined by the incredible Michael J. Russ. I want to say welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me. I love being here. I love doing this with you every week, and I think we're going to have an awesome show again today for our listeners around the world, definitely.
Truly. Michael inspires me. You inspire me every day, but you inspired me this morning, and both you and I really love the ancient art of alchemy, and not just in the literal sense where we are transforming lead into gold, but really in the metaphorical sense where we are transforming challenges into the very catalysts of our growth. And I read a really interesting quote that said, "True alchemy is when the soul takes the raw material of life and turns it into light." That's sort of what we've been talking about for a while.
I like that.
And yeah. I really love it because last week we spoke about the soul's greatest adventure. That's this time on this planet where we are is the soul's greatest adventure. And so if we are taking those raw materials of life and we are able to transform them, I think that's pretty amazing.
I absolutely agree. This is a very interesting time, and in my view, the students, people, the generations have been incarnating in the past 20 years. It's not by accident. It's not the caliber of student, the level of awareness, the level of connection to consciousness, the rebellious nature against institutions that have thrived for decades to hundreds of years is not an accident. We are changing. The consciousness of this planet is elevating, and the youth are coming in, the generations are coming in, and they are matching that vibration. What is getting in the way is the fact that the institutions don't want to give up power. And so we have to, on a daily basis, understand that there are a multitude of sources out there looking to take our power away, to diminish our power. And our job is to perform alchemy in every moment, to transmute the negative messages that are coming out into higher value messages, to be able to take anything of low value, the low value feelings and frequencies, and transmute them into higher values, and take our own inner conversations, of which are a manifestation of always a manifestation of our perceptions and our beliefs, and understand where they are, whether they're on a higher level or a lower level, and continue to take lower and transform it to higher. And that is the trick, in my view. That's what we have to do constantly. It's connected to sovereignty in the way that sovereignty is about controlling what goes into our bodies, what goes into our minds, and what goes out of our minds and our mouths and our thoughts and everything, and our connection to something greater than ourselves. That is, in my view, where we are right now. And people are discovering the word sovereignty. It's being bantered about just about everywhere now. 10 years ago, no. 5 years ago, it wasn't even being bantered around. But now, messengers are using that language, your sovereignty, your ability to control every aspect of your reality, your experience. That is where you are when you are being living as a sovereign being. And I'm enthused by it. I practice it every day just as you do, and when you operate from that level, the things outside of you don't have the power that they used to, which is, to me, glorious, that the outside world doesn't have the power over you that it thinks it does, and that's in my view, where we're headed.
I agree. It's amazing, Michael, because I think oftentimes when we are at that place, and I'm really glad that you brought up what's going on the planet, because we do have that opportunity. And if we each one of us look at our lives and say, here I am I on the threshold of transformation? Whatever life's challenges appear before me, I think are really illusionary. And we can turn those challenges into catalysts for growth, meaning, and joy, the highest the highest thing. And so many individuals have overcome adversity, not by natural talent alone, but by rethinking their mental resilience and support systems. And I was sharing with Michael earlier this morning that I just finished an amazing book by Adam Grant entitled Hidden Potential. And I love it. One of Adam Grant's main messages is it's not about where you start, it's how far you travel from where you begin. And not only did I listen to that, then I finished Richard Branson's masterclass. So my brain is all about transforming and transmuting and looking at where we are, where we become. And throughout history, you see individuals that have taken whatever setbacks that they had and transformed them into greatness. One of the things that I didn't realize before I took Richard Branson's masterclass was that he was dyslexic. And so everything was difficult for him. And it was so fascinating because he grew up in a time when there was war. There was lots of different things going on in the world. And it was not a comfortable time to be a young person when there was all of these different discords going on. And he had the idea to reach students and that students would be able to make a change. So what he did is he decided to start a magazine. He was still in high school. He didn't know what he was going to do, but he knew that he needed money, and so he could sell advertising. And he said he got into a phone booth and just putting money in the phone. He said it wasn't really the most professional thing to do, but he was able to do it and get it done, which is really quite amazing. But part of his sales, he said that this was the only way you would be able to reach students. And he had a vision of reaching 100,000 students. And so he was able to raise about $4,000 to get his first issue printed. And the way that he distributed it was with students. And he gave them 50% of what they sold. And so they would send in the money, and then they had another magazine. And he interviewed some really amazing people in that magazine. And it was sort of interesting because his principal came up to him and said, "You're spending a little bit too much time on the magazine. It's either school or the magazine." And he's like, "Not a tough choice. It's the magazine." And so he quit school at 15, which I think is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, being dyslexic and not understanding that, and none of that got in the way because of what he was involved in. He obviously was a great communicator at 15. And the years before when he was putting the magazine together. He was obviously somebody who could put a message together cohesively on paper, and interview, transcribe it, connect with people in that way. And I've seen people like Richard Branson in my life, people who are go-getters, people who are, I would describe him as industrious. I refer to myself and I refer to you as industrious. It's someone who doesn't need to be told to do things and intuits ways of doesn't see problems, doesn't see challenges, sees things, just hurdles you jump over. It's like an impediment that you brush aside. Back in the day, phone booths, all you had. That and a landline, that's all you had. Mm-hmm. So he wasn't going to sit at home and make phone calls, but calling people to sell ads, and it was just brilliant to have the students benefit from spreading the magazine. Cut them in on it. And how many people would say, I want you to spread this thing, but I'm not going to give you much. And they need to make a living as well, and he recognized that. They're in school, and they'd love to make extra income themselves. I think it's brilliant. It's absolutely that's one of many stories with him in terms of businesses that he's set up. The other one was really cool is how he started Virgin Air.
Absolutely.
And the fact that he and his team of people were stranded in Florida, and flights were being canceled, and he said, let's charter a jet to get us home, right? And on the jet, he came up with this idea to start an airline between the UK and America. It's like, let's start our own.
And I think what was so interesting about that, Michael, is he walked around the airport asking, he said, you have $37. Like, it wasn't a lot of money. He was willing to to go out and walk around and sort of say, okay, anybody who wants to get out of here tonight, let's put our money together.
Yeah, let's put our money together and charter a plane. But it's real magic.
It is complete magic. It is, absolutely. And I think one of the things that I loved about the things that he said was when he said dyslexic, he said he turned it into a strength. He said everything had to be simple, and he was able to become a very good organizer and empower other people to assist him with his skills. And one of the things I thought was so funny, one of the letters that he wrote initially early on in his career, he actually had his grandmother write it. And he knew what he wanted to say, but he wasn't able to do it. So she would type them out for him. And I think that it was all of those little things. I mean, he started off with the magazine, and then it was music. He decided that he was going to start distributing records, and then had an artist that he really loved, which was Tubular Bells. I think it was Mike Old. I apologize, I can't remember his last name. But he really loved the music, and nobody would, I think Mike was maybe 15 or 17 or something like that, and Richard loved the music, and nobody would publish this music. So he's like, okay.
Right.
His motto was, screw it, let's do it. He said something like, let's just do it. Let's just make it happen. And he did. He took a chance. But again, and then he called in all of these DJs that were well known and listened to this music, and then the other musical artists. And the next thing you know, he did a big concert, and it grew from there. But he never let it stop him. And then he said that as he was they were a small label, and they were struggling to sign artists. And then there was the Sex Pistols, and the Sex Pistols came out, and he said that they were very controversial, and they got thrown out. They signed with other labels, but ultimately they got thrown out of their offices, and their deal got canceled. And so he said, you know what, I'll take you on. He didn't see that. He saw that adversity that they were creating to be innovative. He was able to sort of look at things with a very unique lens. And I think it's a very powerful metaphor for alchemy, because when we move that lens, or if it's like a kaleidoscope, just turn it a little bit, rather than resisting what happens, it can become an amazing stepping stone.
True. I love it. And that's so true. His ability to be a disruptor. He was an early on disruptor. And the record companies were institutionalized. They had a formula for bringing artists on and promoting them. He didn't see that. He saw, as a disruptor, he saw music. People like the music. If they like the music, let's produce the music and put it out to the people, right? Instead of being, because that's what record companies do. They feed people based on a formula. They develop artists based on a formula, and they stick to that formula. And what a formula does is it disenfranchises people who don't fall in line with that formula. Interestingly enough, Queen was the same way. The group Queen was producing what they called rock opera, combination between rock and roll and opera. And the record company at the time who was looking to produce them, the gentleman said, "Nah, that'll never fly." And look at them now. I mean, they're icons in the music industry that made music that was different than everybody else, but amazing, intuitive, and visionary. So there's something to be said for not seeing challenges as hurdles you can't get over, and it's all about the mindset. You know, facing it with a positive mindset. And that's what the alchemy is. It's alchemy, when you're thinking along the lines of alchemy, I'd actually use the word alchemy. You know, when it comes to, this impediment has come up, what's the alchemy that I can use in this situation, you know, that I can apply? And that's the way we have to start thinking about it. You know, what's the alchemy here? What's the alchemy? When I'm out on the golf course, what's the alchemy to overcome this mistake I just made? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what's the alchemy to right the ship, okay, to get it back on course. And when you start thinking that way, and you teach your kids to think that way, we teach our youth, then we're raising a whole different generation of thinkers and doers more than anything else. And they're turning, again, the old proverbial lead into gold, turning into taking the not so valuable, which is the low frequency hum and haw, and it can't happen, this can't be done, the I'm not this and I'm not that, into I can make this happen, I can do this, this is happening now. And that's really where you go. And it's not about empirical evidence. Richard Branson didn't have any empirical evidence when he started. He just literally, boom, just did it. And he had the foresight to get the students involved as well. And that, you know, I mean, it's not a stretch to say, how am I going to distribute this? The normal way of distributing this would be go to distributor and distribute the magazine, right? I'm not going to do that. That's a process that isn't going to work for me. And it's not going to work because I'm just starting out in the business. I need to invent and intuit a new way of doing this. And he did.
Right.
Invented it, right? And became successful doing it. And he's applied. The interesting thing about him is that as a disruptor in business, he said personally that his motivation is to see what's there already, look it up and down, left and right, and find the holes in it, and then create a product that fills those holes.
You're right.
That's what he does.
You're right.
Literally. Did it with the airline business. He did it with the record store. He also had a skincare line. He had a skincare store in the UK.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, he'd had more businesses in the UK than he brought out worldwide. But I remember buying, when I was in the UK, traveling in 1995 with my brother and sister and wife at the time, we went to a Virgin store. It wasn't Virgin Cosmetics. It was just a store that carried soaps and wash rags and carpets and towels and all that kind of stuff, and skincare. And he had the skincare brands in there as well as, I believe, his own.
Wow.
So he had a lot more latitude in the UK than he did in America, because a lot of these places, these countries that you go to, they have a certain way of thinking about things. And being English, he knew what the people over there did, how they shopped, what they were thinking, and it was easy for him to take a business that was local and create a new boilerplate for that business based on filling all the holes, all the gaps that in terms of customer service, because he's really big on customer service, and he's really big on making sure that he always queries the people who buy from him, who use his products, queries them about what they can do to make it better. Right? It's not it's from the top down, and even in your life, away from business, we can all, and I've said this take anybody in the world, anybody in the universe. You might have their talents and skills. However, you can adopt their mindset. That's free. That's easy. They're giving that away, right? You got a billion-dollar mindset in this man, and not only that, but he's a wonderful human being. So he's
Absolutely.
got the whole package, and you can simply copy the package, right? And your life will improve because you've adopted some ideas that are self-loving, that that have already been tried and tested, that are through someone else's experiential wisdom, and that's it. And I tell golfers that all the time. You can't play like Tiger Woods. You're not going to have that talent, but you can adopt his thinking all day long. You know, how he approaches the game and how he processes mistakes and how he, his mindset. And that's what other golfers had started to do. No one's done it ever since, has done it since. However, because they've got people telling themselves what to do. But that's really what it's at. You can copy anyone.
Yeah.
You can mirror.
Well, one of the things that I loved about him, and it is that process of extracting value and creating something new from challenging circumstances. And there were so many points of his life, like I think at the start of everything, you said he could barely scrape up $18,000. So when he started opening up his record shops, he looked for places like a shoe store that had an upstairs area. And he said he negotiated and said, well, I'll bring so many people through your door, they'll all buy shoes if you give me X amount of months for rent for free. And that worked for him. And he didn't put a lot of stuff. He put records on the walls. He put pillows on the floor. He put headphones. And it was really a wonderful way to, I think, maximize his investment. But then he invested in people, and he said the one gentleman, he walked into a store, and he was asking this one person who worked for him just different questions, and the guy was so helpful and just knew about so many different things, and he ended up promoting him to be one of the heads of his companies because he saw that value in them. And when he was deciding to do the airline, one of the things that he wanted to do was be the first airline to put video consoles in the back of seats. He said because people wanted to be entertained. So in the beginning, before that technology was available, he would offer free flights to comedians, and I didn't know this about him at all. And so they would get free flights, and they would entertain during the flight. But when he went to a bank, he wanted to see about getting all of the Virgin planes outfitted with the video screens. And they turned him down. It was, I think, he wanted to borrow, I think, $10 million. And they turned him down. Nobody would give him the money. And so instead he went to Boeing and he said, hey, I want to purchase a bunch of airplanes. He said, I would like to make sure that they all have this video technology in the back of the seats. And Boeing said, sure. Then he went to the bank and he got a loan for $2 billion $2 million, whatever it was, to purchase these planes. He said, but it was that shifting that mindset. Because even though there was a setback in the perceived challenge, he did not give up. And that's what I really loved about that book, Hidden Potential. There were so many individuals in that book that never gave up, no matter what it was that came across them.
Yeah. That, his belief in himself and his belief in his ideas was also unwavering. And one of the other things that I know everybody from Bashar to Abraham and everybody else, and even the teachers, is that you get from A to Z faster when you eliminate doubt and fear. Because what we have a tendency to do is to come up with an idea, and then we come up with 100 different ways that it won't work, right? Because we're all focused on the how. And if you just let that go and just went from, put one foot in front of the other and kept moving and believing in yourself and having and again using alchemy at every opportunity to transmute the situation and figure out a different way to do it, you get there much faster, and without being your own impediment. That's something I was telling somebody today. I said, we humans are our own impediment. We get in our own way when we have either a great idea or we seek to accomplish something that we know would be good for us, that we know would elicit joy and happiness and self-love and confidence. And not only, and also be of service to others. We get in our own way and then just don't do it. Somebody told me, a millionaire told me one time, $1 million ideas are all over the floor. Yeah, they're balled up in pieces of paper all over the floor, and it's just people who get so wrapped up in how it will happen, how it could happen, because they don't believe that it could happen, that they just ball it up and toss it on the floor. And one of the things that's interesting is that just about the planes is that once you have the planes themselves become collateral. I know that's a financial term, but basically you're borrowing money, and you have something to give the bank if the money doesn't get paid back. See, banks want to know what can they hold of value. And so basically it's like buying a house with a mortgage. They can always take back the house. They don't want to, but they can always take the house back and resell it, right? There's something there that can guarantee payment. And he knew that. So it was the way that he went about doing it that was pretty amazing. We were not even talking about him being in a balloon ride with his buddy, who passed away, unfortunately, in a plane crash. But his buddy, who they went around the world in a balloon. They set records. Right. He's an explorer. He's an explorer. He had these ideas about going around the world in a balloon at a certain height and setting that record, and he did it. He's definitely an explorer.
You know where he said that came from? He said when he was a little boy, about 6 years old, his mother would take him in the car and he'd drop him off somewhere and say, "Okay, find your way to Grandma's house." And that he said every day with his mother was fun. It was always about adventure. And I think if there's one takeaway from all that he was doing was to have fun with what you're doing. And the other one that I felt so empowered by was the fact how much he values kindness in people and keeping things small and keeping almost like a community. That he felt that if a business got too big, you would lose that connection. And he didn't want to lose that connection where people cared about each other. And he did a show in Britain that he referred to. I didn't know very much about it, but basically the premise was that it was like a contest and people would audition for it and you could come and work with him and learn from him. And he said he had a taxi driver pick everybody up, and it was an elderly gentleman, and he kind of struggled with the luggage and whatnot. And there were some people, Sarah Blakely actually auditioned for this particular show, and he said she was so kind to this elderly man that, let me help you with this, let me help you with that. But he said there was other people who really made fun of this man and his circumstance. And when they got to the room where everybody was kind of gathered, he came in, the elderly man kind of came in and hobbled, and who was it? It was Richard Branson with a mask, and it was him. And he said, for any of you that didn't show me kindness, you can pack your bags and go.
Yeah,
and that's
cool.
How much he values it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about kindness in the shows in the past, and it's a major element for not only being of service to yourself, but being of service to others. It is one of those. It's one of those higher frequencies that when you operate from it, everybody benefits. You benefit, and everybody around you benefits. And you also attract that right back to you. You become a mirror. You are a mirror of your own thoughts and your own actions. And one of the things that's interesting is I think about this. I know you do this. You help people all the time, and I know I'm out helping people all the time. And it's funny because my mother was just here until last week for a month, almost 5 weeks, and you wouldn't believe the number of people when we went out. The number of people, mostly women, believe it or not, actually all of them women, who would look at me and if I was seating my mother in a chair at the restaurant and putting up her chair, folding it up and putting it aside, making sure she was under the table enough, putting her napkin in her lap. I mean, I do all these wonderful things, and women would just lean over and go, "Oh my gosh, you are such an amazing son, such a brilliant." And I'm going, this should be the norm. Why are you?
Right.
And to me, I said thank you. But, however, to me, it was just par for the course. To me, it was just something that I would do, even if I do it for my girlfriend. I see her and the like, and people have told me, "Oh, you're such a gentleman. You're so chivalry's not dead." And I'm going, you know what? If you respect somebody, you love and care for people, that's. You do things for them out of the kindness of your heart, and that's the reason you do it. It's standard operating procedure for me, in other words. And so I did that for 5-6 weeks. Took her to, flew her back to California, and we sat next to each other in first class. We buy first class seats because I don't want her sitting in a little teeny seat. She's got to get up to use the restroom. I need leverage, I need space, and I want her to be comfortable. She's worked all her life. Why not? So that's what we do. We sit right next to each other, and I take care of her all the way back. And to me, it's a joy. It's something I do with a smile on my face, and it's there's no drudgery involved. I pushed her all over airports, and I loved it. And it's kindness is something you can't say enough about. We get caught up in judgment, and the opposite of unconditional love is judgment. It's judgment, and we have to. As a society, when we must be the example for others. We must be the example. I hope I was an example for other people. I don't know if I was, but I would hope that would be the case if they were commenting that I was being the kind of example that would propagate that more in the world. That would
right. And I think, Michael, they probably had a deep appreciation for the beauty of your mom and her strength and your support, and that we all it's part of life. And God bless her that she's been able to see that many summers and the many things that she has over her life, and I hope that she continues to do well. And it is in the Japanese culture, it's an honor to care for your the people that are older. It's not. We're not discarded, and it just
Asian, Eastern culture.
Yeah, and in this kind of culture, it was all driven about being young. But I think that that's shifting. I listened to Martha Stewart's master class, and she, they talk about these super seniors, and she's in her 80s, and I think she was in Sports Illustrated. So the idea is changing about what our perceptions are, and any one of us can pivot. And one of the things that they talked about, and Adam Grant wrote about in Hidden Potential, was about the Japanese art of wabi-sabi as a form, and it truly is a form of alchemy. So in wabi-sabi, if something is broken, you embrace the flaws and the imperfections of whatever it is, and it's recognizing that things are impermanent. And I think it's truly, when we start to do that, we can discover so much more about what life is all about. It truly is, it's amazing. And seeing that value, and he spoke about how when the Japanese tea ceremony had been very strict, and all of a sudden they started, when wabi-sabi was introduced, it became about having non-matching pottery, and if there was a cracked bowl, they would repair it with gold, and then it would become even more valuable because it was broken. And I think when we kind of look at that, and we see, like, we're all so afraid of being imperfect, but when you understand that imperfection is what makes you who you are, that whatever those experiences are, it's sort of like ingredients. Like you were saying, if everything's on the floor and you put it together, those are the ingredients that make your life. And that life can become a masterpiece, or it can become a Jackson Pollock painting, which, you know what I mean? It's all subjective. It could be a Rembrandt, or it could be a Jackson Pollock. Both are beautiful. Both are art. It's just different perceptions of what is art, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. Someone told me this a number of years ago, and I haven't had the chance to completely and totally validate it or not. But they said that when a grapefruit grows, there's a pest. They call them a pest. I call them something else. It's actually a fungus that can happen that causes citrus black spots, and that those particular citrus happen to be, even though they were not pleasing to the eye, actually had a little bit more sweetness to them than the fruit that had the perfect finish on the outside, right? And you know what? What people do is the reason you go into the grocery store and you don't see those grapefruit is because they're weeded out. Only the most perfect, visually perfect grapefruit is what you get. And that doesn't always mean that that's actually the sweetest grapefruit, the sweetest meat. And the same thing with melons, that, melons and other watermelons and other fruit like that, determining the sweetness of it is not so easy, because a lot of the fruit that you see out there is there because it's visually beautiful. This is our society right now, where only the most visually beautiful are offered opportunities, when everyone's beautiful in their own way. Mm-hmm. Everyone. And it's sometimes you miss out on listen. There is sometimes you miss out on something great because your judgment has gotten in the way. That's just kind of what happens. And I find I've examined taken a look a little bit at my life in the last 60 years, and I remember how people had less judgment when I was in high school. The students had less judgment than others. It is really interesting. Mm-hmm. I look at myself and have examined some of the women, many women that I dated in high school and in college and the like, and I looked at, and I'm saying, wow, today someone would have a judgment against somebody like that, because we're taught to seek perfection. Perfection is what matters. And there is no perfection. There's just simply people. We're all souls, as I like to say, balls of beautiful light with various suits of clothes on. That's all we are. We have suits of clothes. We're big, we're tall, we're wide, we're thin, whatever it may be. Different, one color here, one color there, and that's all we are. And yet we are. There's this major train of perception, and a lot of young people are being caught up in it. With cosmetic procedures too young, because they want to look like somebody else. I had a friend of mine who's in her 40s, doesn't have any wrinkles, and all of a sudden she's talking about using Botox, and I'm like, what? This is where we are. This is where we are. And I applaud anyone who has the wherewithal to understand that they're beautiful just as they are. Don't need any corrections, any modifications. It's what's inside that counts. It's not outside. It's what's inside. And the people who judge you from the outside without understanding your inside should give you pause to help you realign your perceptions about yourself, because everything outside of you is what you feel about yourself. So it's not. My favorite line right now is life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, and that's just an example of that. If the people outside of you are not supporting you, and they are highly judgmental or others, turn around, look in the mirror, and say, "Am I judgmental? Right? Mm-hmm. Am I that way?" Because if you are that way, that's what you're attracting into your life. If you don't have a good sense of self, you don't really love yourself 100% unconditionally, without judgment of who you are and what you're doing, then we have to perform some alchemy and transform the thought process, and our outer world will transform as well. The people who come up with this will recognize the beauty that lies within us through conversation and connection.
Yep. And I think sometimes, Michael, that it's that striving for perfection that really can hold us back. And when you take the raw, messy parts of your imperfect life, whatever that is, you can create something really amazing, something really luminous, something divine. And that was one of the stories in Hidden Potential, because Adam Grant, he went beyond the myth of that you're born great. Like, everybody thinks that Tiger Woods was just born who he was. But you're not necessarily born that way. And he shared stories of people who did not begin as extraordinary, but who became through choice and persistence, and he really reframed adversity. And I was, Michael and I, before the show, were speaking about One of the Gentlemen. I did not see the movie, but Michael said I better get a box of Kleenex, and I probably do, because I listened to the story in the book and I was already tearing up, and it was just so emotional. About happy tears though. But a young man, his name is Jose Hernandez, and I would say that if we were speaking about that, he was so afraid of being seen as imperfect that it actually held him back. Although he was an amazing individual, he was a young man who had a dream when he watched the space launch in 1972, that someday he would become an astronaut. And how did he do that? He became an engineer, and then he got his master's, and he would apply and apply and apply, and he got rejection letter after rejection letter after rejection letter, because he was afraid of sharing his imperfection. And his imperfection was that he was not native speaker. He was born to a family where they were migrant workers. So education was very difficult for him, because they would work seasonally. Sometimes they would be in the U.S., sometimes they would be in Mexico. So it wasn't a solid education like you understand, because you moved a lot, but it's different when you're in the same school and you're getting different things. So there was a lot of obstacles, but he never included those. Instead, he wanted to perfect himself to be all of these different things, the qualities, and really embrace all the qualities that he thought a NASA astronaut would imbue and embody. And he took up scuba diving. I think there's all these different things. You saw the movie, so I'd love for you to share what your thoughts about it are, because it wasn't until they hired him as an engineer that they got to know him and what he had overcome, that they ended up promoting him to the space program, and he finally got his dream of being an astronaut.
Yeah, he never gave up on the dream, which is one thing. He always saw it as possible. However, one of the things that I think that one of the takeaways from it that I found absolutely amazing is how he never saw himself as less than. He never thought of himself as less than. And he had a teacher in elementary school in California. He was there. His family was there on one season, fruit picking season, who encouraged him to always covet that dream and just keep working towards it. And I kind of look at it as he wanted to make sure that he took rejection as he wasn't qualified enough. That's the way he took it. And so he kept doing more things. Yes, he got his master's, and I'm not quite sure whether he got his PhD, but he might have. I think that he also, he learned how to scuba dive. He wanted to make himself invaluable to the point that they could not overlook him. So he kept getting more certifications and more licenses that would benefit him as an astronaut. And finally, yes, got hired as an engineer, and then they looked at him, and one thing leads to another, a conversation here, a notice there, a connection, basically, and he became a space shuttle astronaut. And I well up when I think about the end of the movie. It's one of those, you love those movies where at the end they show the real people, like they did in Hidden Figures.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
The 688s, 688s, the black women who in World War II happened to, it was a story about them that just came out in the past. Netflix did it in the past 3 or 4 months, about this black women Air Corps, women's Army Corps, that happened to go to, was sent to England as a last resort. They actually were sent so they could prove that the unit, it would be the defining moment of their failure, right? We just see this program doesn't work. These black women, they don't, they can't do anything. They don't deserve to be in the military. And the general who was incredibly biased and racist and judgmental and everything else you could imagine, who did not want them anywhere in the military, was one of the ones who instigated this setup. I don't want to spoiled the whole thing. However, it's a very successful story, and one that you should definitely watch it. The Women of the 6888, I think, is the name of the movie.
Wow. But it's a great reminder, Michael, because it's all about rewriting the story. So, you have these setbacks that are set up for you. But what if they're set up for you not as a setback, but for your next becoming?
Right.
What are you being asked to learn? What are you being asked to grow into? Because those things can become something that become inspirational, and the energy, it's like, okay, you know what? It gives you that fortitude to say, you know what? I'm not going to sink. I'm going to grow. This is the potential that I'm going to grow in. And I read something, it was funny. It was in one of my cards and the decks, and I pulled a card today, and I thought it was really strange. It said the courageous peony. And I thought, well, I never thought of a flower being courageous. But the opening message was, flowers don't open and close according to who walks by. They embrace all of what they are, and they show it to the world around them. I'm like, wow.
There you go.
Wow.
Okay, I love that. So true. So true. That's an amazing statement. Absolutely amazing statement. We talk about these movies and everything. The real reason we do it is because, and the reason why they make the movie is it's sort of boilerplate that the movie, they find somebody who's overcome challenges in their life to achieve a level of greatness, that to achieve and realize the grandest vision of who they are. And when they're taken from true stories, they're fabulous. But they stand as a metaphor for us that anybody can do, can overcome a challenge, and to be and realize, I should say, the greatness and the grandeur that they were meant to. Right? I mean, it's so true. And again, I'll say it: we are our own impediment. We hold ourselves back from experiencing feelings, jubilation, joy, excitement, passion that we deserve, and that we're here to experience. That's what we're here for. The fun, the joy, the happiness, the grandeur, the excitement, the passion. That's what we're here for. It's not to experience all this other stuff. It's to see that stuff and then perform the alchemy necessary to transmute that to be happy, to be joyful, to be loving, self-loving, non-judgmental, and kind, and just explosively kind to ourselves. That's where we're at. That's the whole thing. And it's taken me a while, it's a little over 6.5 decades to get to the point where, I've been putting a lot of these pieces together for the last 40, 50 years. However, I realize now that, the next level for me that I'm involved in is in shedding, beginning new projects with an absolute zero doubt focus. That there is, this is just have the fun, involve yourself in the excitement, be passionate about it, and just keep doing it. But it's all about, can you generate the positive feelings that you generate doing whatever it is that you're doing, the self-love, the confidence, the excitement, the joy, the happiness that you're feeling when you're doing whatever it is that you're enjoying doing, is spilling over into the rest of your life. And it's actually the catalyst for manifesting what you really desire. It's a conundrum of epic proportions for many people, because it requires a complete 100% faith in that everything will work out the way it's supposed to, and that if I just enjoy life and I'm kind to myself and to others, and I'm experiencing love, and I'm doing things that I love and that I'm passionate about and excited about, and I carry that forth into every connection I have, I'm going to basically, I'm filling my grid with all this amazing stuff. Not doubt or fear or worry or concern or anger or hatred. It's the good stuff. And that good stuff is the fertilizer for the dreams that you want that you envision having for yourself coming true. That's it.
So great. That's beautiful, Michael. And I think it's a wonderful invitation for self-reflection. I know as you were speaking, I thought about that. I thought, okay, what do I need to look at in my own life? What are my experiences, and what opportunities for growth can I take from them? And then it just is like, okay, I don't have to look at everything. I don't have to completely change my world. It can be one area of my life, okay? And then I'm going to apply what you spoke about, those alchemical principles. So I have the power to transform my circumstances and unlock my hidden potential that lies deep within me. Nobody knows what that is. Sometimes I don't even think we know what it is until we're called.
We don't. Mm-hmm. True. I agree.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, and then you cultivate those, right? You consciously cultivate. You're okay. You say, how can I transmute this? How can I turn whatever happened into something else? Turn that lead into gold in my own life, and take that inspired action, because nobody's going to do it for you.
That's true. Nobody's here paid to do that. No one's getting paid to do that.
Yeah, you're right.
So true. I love it. I absolutely love it. I thought about this the other day. There are people who judge people for doing mundane jobs, but doing those jobs to the best of their ability. It was a gentleman who, not once but twice in the past 6 months, I've seen a school. I've seen a school. What do they call them now? They call them. It's not a janitor, but a sanitation engineer at the school. And this gentleman was retiring after, 30 years or something, 35 years of working in the school as the person who cleaned up after everybody else, right? Made sure things were straight. And he had no idea that on his final day, the whole school, kids and all, came together to give him a huge send-off. They came out of the parking lot. They were laughing. It was like so beautiful. He was like blown away by it because he didn't think anybody cared or saw him. He just came in and happily did his job. But he was also somebody who inspired others by his actions and his attitude and his kindness. That's inspirational. You don't have to actually be an inspirational speaker to inspire others. You can just be an example to influence others. To be kind, to be loving, to care about what they do. And if I could tell anybody, listeners out there on PRN FM or on the podcast, the Connect to Love podcast, if you get up in the morning and you're not just absolutely enthusiastic about getting out of bed and living life that day, no matter what age you are, if you're not, then the alchemy we're talking about today is the path that gets you from the negativity, the not liking whatever it is, because you can shift your perceptions about anything. The question is, what do I have to do to absolutely get up in the morning, enthusiastic, loving, kind, just like raring to go, excited and passionate? What has to happen for that to occur? And it can occur without leaving the job that you're at now. You just have to recognize that whatever's outside of you has no impact on you unless you say so, right? We all control how we feel. At least we should be. I know it's a challenge, and we've been taught in society that other people can make you feel whatever way, and that's, there's all the cards and the note cards and sympathy this and all that tell you something completely different. That's just to sell the cards. The real skinny is that you have the power to control every thought, word, and action in response that you make, that you have. That is, and nobody else, without your permission, no one else has control over that. That's sovereignty, period, right? You control your connection to source, your connection with something grander than you, greater than you. With something, with the divine, okay? You control that. No one else can tell you how to feel, what to do, what the connection should be. That's up to you and you alone. That's sovereignty, right? So Your power is an understanding that you're the one who controls all of that. And you give your power away when you allow other people to make you feel less than. When you allow yourself to feel less than based on the fact that you don't like something on your job. I can't say I love 100% of everything on what I do. Never have. That perfection doesn't exist. However, I have the choice to focus on the positive stuff and the things that excite me. And when I do that, it subjugates everything else. Everything else that is not that great about the job, I call it the 90-10 rule. People love 90% of what they do. They don't like 10, but they focus 90% of the time on the 10%. That's what they do, right? And instead of focusing on 10, the alchemy allows you to focus on the 90.
Right. You know, Adam Grant called it, and it's funny that you brought that up because he refers to it in the book as scaffolding. And you think about what is scaffolding. It's a foundation to help elevate you. And he spoke about it in a lot of different terms. And I think about that. Sometimes you don't know how you're going to rise to whatever the challenge is. But if you look at that challenge as a doorway, wonderful things like you just walk through and you're in a different room. You open the door and you walk through, you're in a different space. You've already started the process of alchemy. And when you were speaking, Michael, it made me think about I ended a relationship and I was still working and doing design and whatnot, and I really had a passion for aromatherapy, and I went to every class that I could, and I decided I was going to do an event. And I was at this event and I was speaking to people about essential oils and healing and all this stuff, and this elderly couple looked at me, the one at the end of the day. I was packing up and they came up and they said, do you have an office somewhere? And I said, no, I don't. They said, well, our daughter's at a wellness center and she is a homeopath, and you really need to come out of the closet. I thought, oh, what do you mean come out of the closet? Like, this could be a career for you. This could be a career for you. But it was, I never thought about that. So they were sort of that scaffolding for me, because the next week I thought, well, where is she a practitioner at? I went to and found out that it was shared office space, and I went there in person and I said, is there an opening? And there was a practitioner who had 1 day a week, and I thought, well, that's perfect for me. I wasn't ready to commit to a full-time office, but at that time, 1 day a week was just the perfect amount of scaffolding. I could comfortably pay my rent. I could have the support of other practitioners. I got referrals. It was a very interesting time, and it ultimately led me to opening up my own holistic practice in another location. But it was perfect. But if I had never opened the doorway to that wellness center, I would never have known what was available. And maybe I would have found something a different way. But I think it's just that idea of becoming, like you step through that doorway and you become closer to who you're meant to be, that hidden potential that's inside of you, that's inside all of us.
Oh yeah. And that is so awesome that you did that. Thank you for your story. That is, to me, it's very heartening, because, and it reminds me again of Richard Branson. You did exactly what you needed to do to build the scaffolding that helped you continue to elevate yourself higher. Which is really what like I said, is very, very Richard Branson like. We all, when we really want to do something, we're passionate and excited about it, we'll find a way, and that's the focus that we have to have. Find a way to make it happen. I in another life of my business, another chapter of my life, I was a contrarian in the way that I became a professional in doing it, and unlike anyone else, that and it didn't require. I worked in an area that required at least a BA or an MA, and I did it without either of those, and I've did it for decades. And so you can do whatever it is that you want to do. You'll find a way to make it happen, and you'll also look back on those those experiences with self-love, knowing that you can do anything when you put your mind to it. We're about out of time, but is there anything else you'd like to add? Because this is an amazing story that you just told.
No, I'm just so grateful, Michael, and I think this whole episode regarding alchemy is a wonderful reminder to stay curious, to stay open, and to always connect to love. And I'm so grateful, Michael, that you sharing this sacred space with you and the audience for joining us. And I do hope that if this episode resonates with you, please do share it. And you never know, maybe it'll become the scaffolding for somebody else. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Myself too. Goodbye now.
Until next time.